Look, let's talk about 5 different ways into this industry and start with Boeing, because of course this is the world's largest aircraft and aerospace manufacturer. I think people are familiar with all of the different Boeing planes, from the 737 through to the 787 and all of the others that are coming. Also a big manufacturer of satellites and military aircraft for the US, about 60-40 relationship, commercial as is to military. $151.3 billion of market cap, price earnings ratio 22.4, dividend yield 2.2%. So that puts it kind of in line with normal US market valuations.
Yeah.
How do you like it?
Not particularly expensive. So if you look at Boeing, it's Boeing and Airbus. They're really the suppliers to the industry, and it's a duopoly. I mean, there's no one that really competes with them in their space. So as you said, they obviously do have some competition in the military aircraft, you know, from the likes of Lockheed Martin and others. But really, if you're looking for commercial passenger jets, it's Airbus or Boeing at the moment.
And the orders are astronomical. Chinese airlines have ordered
the order books. I mean, the order books of the Dreamliner when it first came out. I mean, it was years and years and years. It was just the backlog was so ridiculous that you kind of knew that they had worked for as long as they could build, and they could build 12 a month, and you know that's all they could produce, even though the demand was far greater. But I mean, Boeing's certainly the juggernaut in the industry, and it looks good. It's certainly the order books have shrunk a little bit, but they are actually ramping up production at the same time. So
they have had some problems though with the more recent models, like the Dreamliner, very slow technical difficulties, and the minute you go from like 12, what is it, per month?
Yeah, 12 per month. Yeah, so
to like 10, that's got a big impact.
A huge impact, but they're actually at the moment looking at ramping up to 14 a month, which
well, let's look at the share chart.
Most people are saying is unsustainable.
Oops, it's in takeoff mode.
That's it. It's flying.
I've been waiting to say that.
It's flying. But yeah, definitely. I mean, their last quarter revenue was absolutely spectacular. So I mean, especially earnings as well. They've cut back a little bit on capex, and I mean, they were looking at doing about, I think, it's about 12 billion cash flow, and you know, they're going to spend 2 billion on capex. So it leaves a huge free cash flow available, and that I think has got shareholders really excited, and markets very excited, and people are buying.
Look, the aerospace, satellites and space travel business is also there. So they've got these contracts to add on or do bits and deliveries to the International Space Station. That's, of course, dependent on funding. Although under Trump, it appears that anything to do with high-tech armaments is getting a little bit of a tick and a little bit of an upgrade. Yeah. Even though they spend an absurdly large number of billions of dollars, like $600 or $700 billion a year, Trump said, no, what, you guys can have an extra 50. Yeah. So that's a plus, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Only question, I guess, is how long does Mr. Trump last and how long does that last? I mean, everybody who's anti him says, oh no, he's definitely going to get run out of office, but it doesn't look that way.
Yeah, no, the defense, again, the defense spending, you know, and especially defense, you know, defense companies. So like I said, the likes of Lockheed Martin, which we own, have done spectacularly well over the last 6 months, as people anticipated the spending coming out of Trump, you know, the so-called Trump bump. And you've got to start to question, like, at what point does this get too expensive? At what point is this already priced into the stocks? Again, as you mentioned, it's, you know, the military component of Boeing is not massive. It's significant, but
it's not the main driver. It's not the main
driver, and I think the main driver is going to be whether or not the airlines that Boeing feeds into are going to be able to continue to order new machines. Is the demand for air travel?
Because I'm assuming that even though the order book is tremendous, at the margin, at the tail end, you can say, okay, you know what, that 10th plane that I ordered, do you mind just, you know, like delivering it a year later?
And you see it all the time, and exactly that. They switch the contracts, and I mean, you know, almost as these contracts are just so enormous that if you're ordering, you know, 12 787s or, you know, that gets reported almost like on an order by order basis. And you know, often even if you know, the company ordering delays a purchase by 2-3 years, that will have significant impact on the stock price as well. One of the biggest drivers of the stock price, though, is oil. I mean, this is almost a proxy for the oil price as well, because that's a big input cost.
The biggest driver of Boeing, or the biggest driver of their customers?
Of their customers, and by extension Boeing. So the airline industry in general is certainly oil.
So to the extent, though, that we've had oil prices somewhat muted around the $50 level, I'm sort of averaging a bit here. That's good, right? Yeah. That's a huge plus for the industry.
Exceptionally good for the industry.
It's creating the certainty with which people then start to make long-range plans, and affordability becomes an issue. With that share chart having gone up so much, it is still on a 20 PE. So that tells you, as you mentioned in passing there, that the recent earnings were real good, and it's still cheap, even though it's gone literally from $120 to $260 in the space of about a year. Still hot or not? What would you say?
Yeah, I would say hot. Yeah. So sorry, I was just looking at it. So the revenue line was a little bit flat, but the earnings, like you said, the earnings absolutely shooting the lights out, and the company coming out with increased guidance as well. And with the company increasing guidance, that's kind of where you're getting that share price bump from. So I would say still hot at this stage. Definitely still hot.
So it's a bet on humanity and its mobility via air. Yes, I'm going hot.